Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Garrett Horner, and this is stage one of the Tour de France 2021 presented by Moss Adams.
Hi there, and welcome to the Butterfly Effect's coverage of the Tour de France. My name is Stan Luker, and I'm a partner with Moss Adams, and I'm also an avid cyclist. Moss Adams is proud to sponsor the tour coverage for the next 3 weeks. In particular, we look forward to the in-depth tactical and strategic analysis that Chris is best known for. If you're wondering who we are, Moss Adams is a full-service national accounting firm focused on the needs of the middle market. We are West Coast based with offices spanning from Seattle to San Diego and over to Denver down through Texas and everything in between. So please come and visit us at mossadams.com to find out more. And I hope you enjoy this coverage.
Now at 198 kilometers, 6 categorized climbs, you knew the racing was going to be exciting on stage one of the Tour de France. And we know the finish is hard. A 3K climb, 8% the first 1K, and then it will start to ease up all the way to the line. So you know all the big hitters, the classic guys we've been talking about, Julian Alaphilippe, Mathieu van der Poel, Wout van Aert, Peter Sagan, of course, the GC favorites with Tadej Pogacar and Primož Roglic. They are all in with a chance to win on a stage like today. 5 kilometers. Whoa, let me back up. I almost forgot. My man, Victor Campenaerts, on the attack from kilometer 0, throws in the first attack of the 2021 Tour de France. Good job, Victor. 5K later, though, there'll be some road furniture, and riders are splitting the left turn between the center islands, and a crash happens already 5K into the stage one of the Tour de France. Looks like most riders survived that. They'll get back together, and the action will keep going. About 20K into the stage, a group of 5 will get away. 1 will slip off the group of from the peloton and bridge up, and it's 6 guys that are holding off the field all day. And I say holding off the field because the most amount of time they were given on today's stage was about 3 minutes. About 80 kilometers to go, Schelling will take off the Bora Hansgrohe rider, and he'll steal the KOM points and get a fabulous jersey from stage 1 on the 2021 Tour de France. And that's a big deal for the young Bora Hansgrohe rider. He's been riding strong this year. I've seen him in the classics having some really solid rides. He knew here with Bora Hansgrohe his job was going to be working for Peter Sagan and his GC favorite riders later on in the Tour de France. So great job, Schelling, getting up the road and stealing KOM points. Now it gets really drama-packed from about 45 kilometers to go. There's a massive crash there, and it's Tony Martin, Jumbo-Visma rider, that catches a sign from one of the fans holding out a cardboard sign. Tony Martin comes by and just plows the sign, and you see she's holding onto the cardboard, which is going to put more pressure on Tony Martin's arms and handlebars. He goes down, and the crash is absolutely spectacular. Just about everyone's involved either held up or on the road with this crash. Tony Martin will take a brunt of the crash. You will see him later as he's coming back with a lot of road rash, but he won't make it back up to the front group. My favorite, Peter Sagan, that I was hoping would put on a show at the end of today's stage, is spending 15 kilometers back there trying to get back to the front group. He will arrive back on there, but we won't see him factor in on the finish when we start to go up the last 3 kilometers. But the drama's not over. With 7 kilometers to go thereabouts, there's another massive crash, only this time the speeds were high. They have to be doing 55, 60K, 65K an hour back there. And it just, all the riders went down and plugged up the whole road. Again, there's no place for the riders behind the pass. Whenever you're racing in this region of France, there's always a massive gutter on the right side and the left side, and there's just no place for the riders to go when there's an accident in front, and they just keep plowing into each other until it fills up the whole road. Up front, a lot of the favorites missed it this time. You have Jumbo-Visma that squeezed through with their race leader, Primož Roglic. Wout van Aert made it through. The Deceuninck Quick-Step that was all the way on the left avoided all of the carnage, and Ineos just barely in front of the crash that the B&B hotel rider went down when he overlapped with the UAE Team Emirates rider. Luckily for the Ineos guys, they make it through this crash. Now it's Deceuninck Quick-Step, and Deceuninck Quick-Step have been fabulous the whole race, always riding at least Tim DeClercq from kilometer 0. They avoided most of the crash with 45 kilometers to go. It did hold up Julian Alaphilippe, but this second crash with about 7K to go, all their guys make it. And with about 4 kilometers to go, I want to point something out because Julian Alaphilippe, he's always, a little dancing and a little twitching, always fixing something on himself or the bike. He's reaching down and adjusting his shoes with about 4 kilometers to go. That won't cause him any problems, but before we get into the technical little right, left before the final climb starts, he adjusts his shoes again, and this time you see him in the picture. He's right behind deceuninck Quickstep. He reaches down to start adjusting his shoes before the real technical section turns come and the climb starts, and then he gets a little swarmed and gets slopped back about 4 riders from his deceuninck Quickstep lead out train of 3 guys up front. Go back and we'll look at that picture. Dries Devenins, his teammate, is way behind Julian Alaphilippe. Alaphilippe will try to get back up to the front before they come out of the last corner, but it's not to be. And when they come out of the last corner, the 3 deceuninck Quickstep are riding to perfection. And what you want to do is exactly what you'll see in the video. So if you're ever wondering how to do the lead out for a rider on form, deceuninck Quickstep is doing it because as soon as they come out of the last corner with 3 kilometers to go, each of the deceuninck Quickstep riders is just hitting out as hard as they can, going till they blow, pulling to the left and falling off. First rider does that. Second rider, same thing, sprinting as immediately when he's first guy on the front there. He starts sprinting and then just pulls off. They're left with 1 deceuninck Quickstep rider. And you'll see Julian Alaphilippe has to work a little magic. And at this point in time, when I'm at the NBC office, I realize while I'm watching the tour, Julian Alaphilippe looks pretty good at this moment because he gets gapped off from Bahrain victorious Mohoric. He gaps off. Julian Alaphilippe flies up the left side. Before he takes the time to just pass him, he'll stop and pause and look over at Mohoric. And that's given like one of those like, dude, come on, man, why are you opening the gap? But honestly, Julian Alaphilippe, why were you messing with your shoes before the most important technical section of today's race, and really the only technical section of massive importance is right when Julian Alaphilippe was messing with his shoes and got behind Mohoric to begin with. Now, of course, Mohoric isn't that pure climber on a finish like today's stage, so when he blows and opens the gap and Julian Alaphilippe flies by, in my mind, there's no reason for Julian Alaphilippe to give him that little stare down, that nasty stare down that says, hey man, why did you open the gap? Well, I'm telling you right now, why were you behind Mohoric, Julian Alaphilippe? He'll close the gap up to his teammates, and then you'll see Dries Devenins. And Dries Devenins is on fabulous form. He's coming from 15th spot back already on the climb when 2 deceuninck Quickstep riders were sprinting and both blew up. At that moment, there's 1 deceuninck Quickstep rider left. Julian Alaphilippe has made it up onto the back of his wheel, and that rider's objective now, unless he's really strong, he's just got to keep the pace as high as he can until he blows. He's doing that, and at the same time, Dries Devenins is flying up the left side, coming from 15 spots back. This is really cool, and I know this feeling because I've done it many, many times myself. I remember doing it at Tour of California for Levi Leipheimer on one of the mountain stages there, and I just come up to the side. Dries Devenins does the same thing, and Dries looks over. Alaphilippe looks over and gives him the nod, and then you see Dries Devenins just get on the pedals and start throwing down. Alaphilippe latches onto his wheel. Wout van Aert latches onto Julian Alaphilippe's, and Dries Devenins is doing a magical job at the front for at least another 500-700 meters until Julian Alaphilippe starts to light things up. Julian goes at about 2 kilometers from the finish, and he is just on the pedals going. Now behind, it was none other than Wout van Aert. I already told you that was on his wheel. Wout can't do anything about it as Julian Alaphilippe takes off on the right side of his deceuninck Quickstep teammate, Dries Devenins. Wout goes left and has Primoz Roglic near the back of his wheel. Now Wout has already turned off any ideal of winning today's stage. This really impressed me about Wout because Julian Alaphilippe is going up the road. And let me remind you guys at home watching the Butterfly Effect, Julian Alaphilippe, race leader at the 2019 Tour de France, early in the 2019 Tour de France and stage winner. 2020 Tour de France, race leader and stage winner after stage 2. So both years, 19 and 20, he held the jersey, and both years, of course, gave it up before the finish. Now it's 2021. We're on stage 1. Julian Alaphilippe has a gap on Wout van Aert, and this is what really impresses me about Jumbo-Visma rider. Okay, he's a superstar, and we know he can win races. When a superstar can win races, we see it many times. I've seen it with Mathieu van der Poel many times where he can't switch back to domestique role. Wout van Aert, this is beautiful to watch, and I enjoyed it immensely what I saw him do. He knows he can't go with Julian Alaphilippe. He looks back. He sees none other than Primož Roglič on his wheel, his teammate, #1 rider in the world most times, and just switches to super domestique mode and starts riding hard. That's holding the gap a little bit, but not too close because Julian Alaphilippe is still extending it slowly. Man, we're talking about 8, 7, 6% climb as the pitch just keeps easing up all the way to the finish line. Then Primož Roglič makes a little mistake in my mind. He tries to go after Julian Alaphilippe, but he already had Wout van Aert in front of him. I think if he leaves Wout van Aert in front of him, Wout could do probably a little bit more effort. Instead, Primož Roglič gets a little impatient, and he's going to try to bridge the gap to Julian Alaphilippe. He'll get about halfway, and then he'll pause there. Pierre Latour, where did you come from? Because you bridged across to Primož Roglič and Tadej Pogačar, who was on his wheel and rode right past 2 and started to bridge the gap to Julian Alaphilippe. Now, right as he gets about halfway between that gap, Julian Alaphilippe's going to have none of it because he's got one more kick left, and this is going to put the dagger through everybody's legs behind in the professional peloton, and we're talking about the pros at the Tour de France. I've told you many times, July is when everybody's on their best form. Nobody's holding anything back for the Tour de France, and Julian Alaphilippe just stabbed everybody's legs with his second acceleration to solo into the line for a spectacular win. Takes the race leader's jersey at the Tour de France, and on top of that, gaining time and with time bonuses and an 8-second gap on all the GC favorites that were lucky enough to make it through the crash and hold on for today's stage. Michael Matthews will jump with just about 150, 200 meters before the line, and he'll hold off for second. Primož Roglič, he'll hold on for third. He won't get Michael Matthews, but he saves some time bonuses on Julian Alaphilippe by getting third. Behind, Tadej Pogačar does damage control and loses only 8 seconds, plus, of course, a 10-second time bonus to Julian Alaphilippe, but doesn't lose any time to Primož Roglič, who is his main rival at this year's Tour de France. Now, the guys who lost time, massive. Richie Porte, Ineos Grenadiers came in with 4 leaders, and they'll lose 50% of them because Richie Porte will lose over 2 minutes. Theo Gegenhardt will lose more time than he can possibly make up at this year's Tour de France. So Ineos are back to their normal 2 race leaders during the Tour de France. Jumbo-Visma did a great job in terms of keeping Primož Roglič near on GC without losing much time. And Wout van Aert, man, hats off to you. That was a spectacular ride of going from superstar winner to superstar domestique to keep Primož Roglič in check and time saved for this year's Tour de France. Now, what do I see out of Julian Alaphilippe? Guys, this is the Julian Alaphilippe form that we saw in 2019. If I'm Deceuninck Quick-Step, I'm racing 100% for Julian Alaphilippe to go for GC now. They have a stage win with Julian. They have the race leader with Julian Alaphilippe. Now you have one more hard finish on tomorrow's stage up the Mur de Bretagne. I'd go ahead and let him off the leash and see if he can gain some more time bonus or another stage win, but only doing it if it keeps his energy safe and in check. I would not let Julian Alaphilippe waste energy like we saw in 2019. Go ahead and let him race for GC. Why not? You have the race leader's jersey at the Tour de France. That's objective number 1. You've won a stage, objective number 2. And he's riding on beautiful form, so hell, why not just go for the general classification? We saw in 2019, he only came up 1-2 mountain stages short, but he was blowing energy everywhere. If he keeps everything in check this year, maybe he could be the next Frenchman to win the Tour de France since Bernard Hinault. Huge accomplishment. Great ride, Julian Alaphilippe. Great ride from Jumbo-Visma, keeping Primoz safe and all the way to the line. Tadej Pogacar, man, you are amazing. You had a fabulous ride on today's stage, and most of your teammates were caught behind the first crash with 45K to go. We got a fabulous Tour de France to look forward to. Stage 2 should be just as exciting. I want to thank Moss Adams for sponsoring the Butterfly Effect, and I'll see you guys real soon. Make sure you like and subscribe.